Well, hey there teachers, Heimler here, and just wanted to take a quick moment to refresh our memories and awaken our imaginations for why we teach history in the first place. Now, I just published a video over on my main channel addressing why we study history, and that one was aimed at students, and while there will be some overlap in content, I thought it was important enough for us to huddle up together as history teachers and consider the same topic. And the thing is, I'm not going to tell you guys anything you don't already know. I'm just here to stir up the feelings, because we're going to need some feels once the school year starts. So, why do we teach history? I can think of 4 reasons. First is to help teenagers learn to love the past. Now, a philosopher named Esther Meek wrote a little book on epistemology, and she basically says in that book that there are 2 ways to love a thing. First is that we know in order to love. In other words, we see a person or a subject of inquiry and we stand apart from it, arms crossed, and say, show me what you're all about, and then I'll decide if you're worth loving. Now, I've been teaching for over a decade now, and probably 99% of my students, and I'm guessing yours too, are coming into the study of history in that manner. They're there because they have to be by law, and I'm kind of like the enemy because I'm about to throw assignments at them and make their lives difficult, and so they're not looking to love history. They stand back, arms crossed, trying their best to get a good grade, and they say to this course of instruction, essentially, if you prove yourself to me and show me something beautiful, then maybe I'll consider loving you. But what Esther Meek says is that by approaching any subject or even a person in that manner will never result in love. Why? Because my posture is fundamentally a posture of judgment, and no entity will expose the riches that lay within under a judgmental eye. So what's the alternative? Well, Meek says that we must love in order to know. In other words, we must assume before anything else that the subject at hand has vast riches and beauty to offer us, and we come to it not to make it prove itself to us, but rather we come in humility and wait for it to reveal its beauty to us. And by the way, I tell all my students this on the first day of class, and I acknowledge that they are likely taking this course under duress, and if you had your choice, you'd probably be doing anything else with your time. But then I tell them how arduous this course will be if they've decided to know in order to love. It's going to be hard, and you might grow bitter, and the result of it all is that the study of history will never reveal its beauty to you. And then I tell them, wouldn't it be better to enjoy this class rather than to not enjoy it? Well, the only way to do that is to start by loving it, and only then will you have a chance at actually experiencing some of the riches that this study has to offer. Now, that's usually where I leave it with my students, but let me go one more step further with you since we're talking about why we teach history. Everything I just said, you probably agree with on a theoretical level, but let's get real. How in the world do you actually convince students to love something that they don't naturally love? Well, as I see it, there are basically 2 ways in which a person might fall in love with a thing. First, they perceive the perfections and beauty of the thing on their own, and then their hearts are captured by it. If you've been teaching for more than 5 minutes, you know that's only going to happen rarely in our classrooms. But the second way to fall in love with something is to witness someone else's delight in it. Everything in this world, every person, every book, every bush, every song is bursting with glory, but we remain blind to most of that beauty. What it takes is someone who has been gripped by an affection to reveal that beauty to us. For example, I'm not much into classical music. I appreciate it for what it is, but my sensibilities haven't been trained to truly enter into it. But I clearly remember a friend listening to classical music with me and explaining everything he heard. Did you hear how this theme answers this theme from the beginning? And did you hear how that violin creates the texture for the mood and how no other instrument could possibly do it that way? And he just kept going on, and as I listened to him grow more and more excited about it, my own heart started to flutter. I began to see, even if just for a moment, the beauty of a thing that was before that moment hidden to me. And so my guess is if anyone in our classes is going to love the study of history, it will be because they see us loving it first. Okay, now the second reason we teach history is to teach students how to think. And the student is going to object and say, yeah, but I can learn how to think by studying science or mathematics or engineering or whatever, and those are more valuable to society anyway. But we know what they don't know, namely that within each discipline is embedded a unique way of thinking that is shared by no other. And so when we teach them to think historically, we are teaching them to think in ways that mathematics or science could never deliver. And yes, I know there's overlap between the disciplines, but there's a manner of thinking unique to history that no other discipline can deliver. Math with its logical postulates and science with its sanitized laboratory will never help a student understand the world in its human complexity. Now, to be clear, I'm very grateful for the ways those disciplines teach students to think, and they're very necessary, but when they learn to think historically, we are teaching our students to enter the past and think in terms of contingency and comparison, change over time, and the materials that they engage to learn about those processes are only those that fall within the discipline of history. And oh my goodness, do we need people in this world, in this nation, who can think. I don't have to tell you about the dangers of dictators and cable news pundits who try to reduce the world into binary binaries like us versus them and good versus evil, and it is only the unthinking population who finds pleasure in those bitter fruits. I was about to come back and qualify that, make that statement less stark, but I'm staying with it. Okay, the third reason we teach history, and to me this is the most important, is to bestow virtue. And the specific virtues I'm thinking of are humility and love. Like, we're not aiming to teach students their heritage, which I know is a dirty word among historians. Like, teaching heritage is an exercise of looking backward to a golden age that is perpetually bathed in the warm glow of the rising sun. And what's weird is that when we do that, everyone in the past seems to be just like us, and they agree with the choices we're making in the present. It's marvelous. But that, to be blunt, is bull honky. Sorry about that. Please forgive the strong language. We are not teaching them heritage, which requires no virtue to accept. In that way, the past never challenges our assumptions, never reveals any of our own blind spots. Rather, we teach history, which by nature requires love and humility. Humility because studying history in its proper form requires our students to admit that their life and their moment in time is not the biggest deal there is. We are only one small dot on the timeline of the world. But the teaching of history also bestows love, because if we teach it properly, we are requiring students to listen to the past before they judge it. And isn't that what we all want for ourselves? Like, for others to lead with listening and consideration before judgment? Yeah, the study of history helps our students do to the actors of the past what we would hope others would do to us. And in that way, we teach history in order to teach our students how to love properly and thus become better, more flourishing human beings. Okay, so as the year begins, I hope this has been a good reminder for you of why we do what we do. I'll be publishing videos all year on this channel, and the way that you let me know that you want me to keep making them is by subscribing. So, here's to a magnificent year. Heimler out.